Vietnam sends a ship to track Chinese vessel patrolling Russian gas field. Again, very odd, and it says that a Vietnamese ship monitored a Chinese Coast Guard vessel on Saturday in a Russian-operated gas field in Vietnam's South China Sea exclusive economic zone. Data shows that the latest Chinese patrol in a pattern stretching more than a year. Chinese Coast Guard ships have sailed directly into energy exploration blocks operated or owned by Russian firms in Vietnam's EEZ, or exclusive economic zone, about 40 times since January of 2022, according to vessel tracking data from Vietnamese research organization South China Sea Chronicle Initiative. And it says that China considers the area part of its expansive territorial claim in the South China Sea, marked by a, quote, 9-dash line, a boundary the Permanent Court of Arbitration found in 2016 to have no legal basis. It has built artificial islands and airfields in some reefs and inlets in the sea to widespread concern of the region and the United States. So, by the way, they say that they've built some airfields on some reefs and islets. They are literal islands now, and they have built, I don't even know what they are up to now, but obviously they have a ton now. They started out with 3 or 4, and I believe they have way more than that now. They have even invested in making a ship, this special ship that actually takes all of the land from the bottom of the sea and creates these islands twice as fast. They're going to create more airfields. They're going to create more bases. These are forward operating bases, and that is, again, I don't think that's to be debated at this point. But again, leave me your opinion down below. We're going to get into all of this tonight and all of the current events, including Putin moving nukes to Belarus. We're going to talk about, of course, the events over the weekend and everything that's going on right now here on Marfoogle News. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. If you've never been here before, this is a live show. We're going to go over all of the current events, and if you've never been here before, you would probably not know. We make sure to back it up with a bibliography. Every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we are going to mention here today will be over on our website. You'll see is easily organized by thumbnail. You'll just look for today's thumbnail, tactical placement, and then it will bring you to today's show. This will have every single article, source for everything that we talk about, plus a whole lot more. Once you hit a yellow bar at the bottom, which we'll mention at the very end, make sure to go check that out as well. That is all of the overflow/web content. So that is all of the stuff that would get you in a fight immediately if you started talking about at the bar, or again, all of the stuff that just could not fit into the show. There is some stuff that just wouldn't fit. Again, that is down there as well. Make sure to go check that out. There is a ton there, and it takes a lot of work to put that there every single show. So make sure to go use it. And then, of course, remember, our mods are doing a great service for the chat down there. They are keeping it peaceful. Make sure to respect the basic rules of the chat and to respect your mods. They are awesome. Make sure to go over to check out marfooglenews.com/friends, and you can find all of their links there as well. It makes it very easy to subscribe. You can just go click the red button on that page, and you can follow all of our friends and mods. Down below, there are all the creators that we think are awesome, so make sure to go check out some of our friends as well. Let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So yeah, with Dex, I guess why would Vietnam? Obviously, they have just done a bunch of stuff with the U.S. Didn't we just have several of our officials go to Vietnam? Wasn't that something that just happened?
Yeah, I think both us and G has sent people there to meet and leaders there to meet. But specifically, those disputed waters between the Philippines and Vietnam, they are probably the two biggest countries that have the most territory in that water into that disputed area. And where, when Xi tries to create those islands and create new territory and create new claims on those waters, he's really taking them away from Vietnam and from the Philippines, as well as others. There's others there as well, but for the most part, they're probably the two biggest right there. So that's why it's a sticking point for them. They want to maintain their sovereignty as well, or at least their claims into the waters, and they've often patrolled them, but obviously. Xi's boats going in there and trying to take claim is ruffling a lot of feathers, not just not just the US's.
Yeah, there's at least three of the more well-known countries, and then there's at least two that are really pissed off at China right now. We'll probably talk about that later on as well. But first, France. So before we talk about this, I do want to thank you, Mike S., right out of the gate. Thank you for the support on the Super Chat. And just know that you can always write something there if you want to write a message or a shout out. And then East Tennessee Preparedness was the first out the gate. Thank you for your support. It says, hi, Adam, Dex, and mods. Glad to make a live stream for a change. Well, thank you for making it. It's a little bit later than usual. As you guys know, I'm working during the days. So the shows have been later, but I'm just waiting for my schedule to change, and then I'll be able to do the normal 7 o'clock time period. And then Macron holds crisis meeting as more France protests loom. French President Emmanuel Macron summoned government ministers for a crisis meeting on Monday as tensions ran high a day before another major round of strikes and protests against his pension reforms. Nearly 2 weeks after Macron rammed the new law through Parliament using a special provision sidestepping any vote, unions have vowed no let-up in mass protests to get the government to back down. They have called for another big day of action on Tuesday, which is kind of, by the way, if this happened here, if it was the wrong side, they would be in jail, right? Here, at least right now, if you are on one side of the table, there is no such thing as protest. It's just domestic, right? On the other, it's activism. It says they have called for another big day of action on Tuesday, the 10th such mobilization since protests started in mid-January, since the controversial law, which includes raising the retirement age to 64 from 62. It's not just the retirement. I'm believing most people are just very pissed off at making changes without even asking people about it, or there was no input. Macron sidestepped any way of anybody kind of putting their say into this, and I bet you it's because they would probably say no. Dex, as far as like Macron doing this, he is very unpopular. Why would I guess I don't know how it works there. What term is he on? Do they have a certain amount of terms? Does he not care because he's not going to get another term? Because his popularity is in the toilet right now.
Yes, I don't know how long the term is. I think it's at least 4 years, if not five, maybe five there. But he's been in since 17, and he's been elected a couple of times. I think we covered the last one. But yeah, people are upset about this. It's I think it's mostly it's kind of interesting because when you think about it, when you retire, a lot of the funding is coming from the government. and all of these governments are pretty much out of money, right? Including ourselves. We just print more when we run into an issue. I mean, right now we're up against the debt ceiling that's not going to potentially may not get resolved, and we'll literally run out of cash flow in the coming months. So it's kind of ironic that as we're going into these troubled times, they don't expect them to cut money by moving dates back and saying, well, people are living longer, so we're going to move it further back. And that's fine. I'm not for or against it. I'm just saying it's kind of ironic that the global economics right now, especially in all of these countries, is pretty much like in the dumper, so to speak. So for them to think that they have the funds to continue paying for the stuff, now, mind you, we would look the same way. We look at Social Security and be like, yeah, if they took away to the first 2 years of your Social Security and made you wait 2 more years, everybody here would be upset too. So yes, big deal. But where's that money coming from? Right now, like, we don't even have the money to pay for it. We just keep printing more dollars to foot the bill. So I think really what everybody ought to be upset about is where is all of the other money going, as opposed to going to the things that actually matter to the taxpayers.
Yeah. So are they getting prepared for something else, something bigger, like a war? Another thing. So they say moving on the pensions, right? Let's see here. There was a good way. It says the protest movement against the pension reform has turned into the biggest domestic crisis of Macron's second mandate. With them clashing, there was a huge number, 457 arrests across France and injuries to 441 police. But the one part, so isn't one of the big worries here is that Social Security will just disappear, that people's pensions will disappear, all of that happening? Again, they actually postponed King Charles III's visit because of this. And it says, Bourne presented the plan for consultations. I was trying to find the part that I just had, and I scrolled past it. New measure on the table designed to ease the impact of the pensions law targeting. So this is moving the age 2 years, right? But one thing that folks worry about in the long term, say you work all these years in any country and you expect to have a retirement fund, something there. Dex, don't people worry here that they'll work all their lives and then something will just disappear, like all of their pensions and things like this will just be a thing of the past? They'll just say, we're not doing it anymore. Isn't that something that people worry about?
Well, I think pensions here are a thing of the past. I think the thing that we have left is Social Security. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some people out there that still have pensions, and there's still a few out there, but for the most part, most people work their lives and they either save it themselves, they put it in a 401k, or they depend on, or they get themselves in a position to depend on what little you're going to get from Social Security and see if that gets you by. So yeah, but if Social Security runs out and you don't collect however much you make a month based on how many hours you worked your life, because there's no more money for it, then yes, we would have an aging population that would be pretty much broke, because a lot of people just live off of that.
So my point more being exactly. So if the thing is if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. And this is one step towards something else that nobody wants in any country. It doesn't matter where you are. It seems like they are messing with this kind of stuff. And that's something that I guess the chatter on the internet's been around for 10 years, that these things would happen. Especially around retirement age and things like this. This was rumored 3 or 4 years ago, and we covered the stories saying that countries would do this if it got bad enough. And now it's bad enough. And now we at least know France, China, and I'm forgetting what the third one is. Third major country that's like moving their retirement age. That's just, Japan. Isn't it Japan? Didn't Japan just do the same thing, or is doing something similar, or they're trying? I think that this is suggested now. The reason why is, as Elon said, there are more adults in diapers than children in diapers because of how the population grew and how it bustled. There are far more older folks than there are babies, right? More adults in diapers than babies. So if they come, go ahead, Dex.
I was just going to say, statistically speaking, the problem will actually it could go away if if tax revenues stay and the baby boomers, sorry guys, age out and perish, and the aging population starts to shrink, then it won't be as much of a problem. It's just that's a matter of time. And when you look at the curves and everything that they look at, as far as population, it's why people like Elon say we need to be having more children or things like that, because of the way the things are happening. There won't be those large age groups, because they'll eventually be phased out, in the sense that because the population will eventually start to either flatline and then start to shrink. I want to say it was 2050 or something like that when they said it would hit the peak, 8 something billion or whatever it is. But yeah, it's a really interesting position that we're in, because we've got people that are paying the dollars out of their tax money to take care of people that are receiving this, whether it be Social Security here in the U.S. or a pension or something else elsewhere. And if the money's not there to pay for it, how do you deal with it? And if people live longer, and science makes that happen, makes that possible, the average age length, life expectancy is getting longer. So how do you account for all of that?
Well, before we move on real quick, so have you seen what is happening with this newest generation? It was a 4,000% increase in people turning towards switching what they were born as. So if they were born one thing and they wanted to be another, there was a 4,000% increase on that. There was a recent video that was just put out by somebody who did that. I'm trying to think if it's somebody, Blair, I think it was. But they put out a video talking about how all of these mainstream scientists have looked at what TikTok was doing to youngsters and this whole fake Tourette's thing that was going around, that people were essentially faking Tourette's. And it was something that they saw on TikTok and something that people related to. And this is what I was talking about the other day, that TikTok is centered around trauma. And this is something that is like this newest generation's like fad, to be talking about their trauma and childhood this and childhood that, which again, some look at it and they go, oh, it's therapy. But when you have the negative effects of it, where there were people around the world and they looked and they realized that these folks that were on TikTok doing fake tics, and they were basically pretending and self-diagnosing themselves with Tourette's, they noticed a pattern once they saw that the verbal tics that they had, which you don't get to choose your own tics, were all of the same tics. So in one example, they were saying beans, beans, beans. And the thing is all across the world, in different areas of the world, these people on TikTok were saying the same ones. So it was a flag saying, whoa, this is not something that's real. These kids are picking it up and self-diagnosing and telling their minds that they were doing this. And they said that some of these kids actually created it. They created it in their brain, and they had it because of what their brain told them. They told themselves they had this so much that they actually had it. And the whole self-diagnosis thing, like, I'm trying to explain this in the best way possible, but basically these kids are on here and they see somebody with a certain thing and they go, well, I have that side effect too. I have that. It's kind of like when you Google, symptoms of a disease. Oh, runny nose, and your neck hurts and your side might hurt. Well, if you have that, you're like, oh gosh, I have cancer. Well, these kids have taken it to like a new extreme. There's this whole relation thing that people get, and this high off of the social media. And it's just crazy to me that there's all of these things going on in our children and in this new generation that is virtually stopping them from procreating. When Mr. Yilly Bates there said in his TED Talk, he said, if we do a really, really good job making new that we can reduce the pop by 10 to 15%, right? Now we not only see that, but we also see this huge new push and in social culture to not only not have kids, but to make it so you absolutely can't have kids, if you know what I mean. Like stitching up or cutting off. I think it's kind of crazy. And what will be the long-term effects of that? I wonder what the studies will say in 20 or 30 years if we're still around and most of the elite haven't left us for Mars. Critics claim Paris is using 2024 games to introduce Big Brother video surveillance. So this is out of France 24. It says that all-encompassing law that France's National Assembly is due to adopt on March 28th ahead of the 2024 Paris Olympic Games will allow shops to open on Sundays, establish a health center in the Department of the Saint-Denis, and permit the French state to investigate future accredited persons. However, Article 7 of this law is particularly controversial, as it states that the AI video surveillance may be used on a trial basis to ensure the safety of the Olympic Games. Human rights groups say that the use of this technology will set a dangerous precedent, which I actually agree with this 100%. During the preliminary phase, Article 7 was adopted by the presidential majority, France's right-wing party, as Les Républicains and far-right National Rally, the new ecological and social people's unions, or I guess the NASA acronym came up with this one, NOOPS, a coalition of left-wing parties opposed it. And by the way, that's actually normal, right? That side used to be against, for free speech and not, this kind of stuff. So maybe it's not backwards there all the way like it is here. But it says it will allow algorithm-driven video surveillance technology to be used to ensure the safety of large-scale sporting, recreational, cultural events on a trial basis. They are starting to look a whole lot like Xi's country, aren't they? I mean, this is something where if an inch is given, they will travel a mile, stomp on it, and then burn out their tires on your driveway. It says an all-out assault on rights to privacy. Algorithmic video surveillance is the new form of technology that uses computer software to analyze images captured by surveillance cameras in real time, explains Arnauti Toati, lawyer specialized in digital law. Quote, the algorithms used in the software are notably based on machine learning technology, which allows AI video surveillance over time to continue and improve and adapt to new situations. Proponents of the technology claim to be able to anticipate crowd movements and spot abandoned luggage and potentially dangerous incidents. It says compared to traditional video surveillance, everything is automated with algorithms in charge of analysis, which according to those in favor of this technology, limits humans' errors. So if somebody leaves a boom boom device in a luggage, it will be able to spot it and will say, hey, somebody just left their rolling luggage right there in the sidewalk, and it will immediately spot it so they can go grab it or go send out the squad to it or something, right? But so much more than that. It will be able to detect if there's a felon in the crowd, somebody who is wanted for this, wanted for that. Boom, it will detect them immediately, and it will alert them all by algorithm. It says, while France promotes itself as champion of human rights globally, which should be a joke by now, its decision to legalize AI-powered mass surveillance during the Olympics will lead to an all-out assault on the rights of privacy, protest, and the freedom of assembly and expression. Imagine if you go and protest, but you know that if you go out in public, that you are absolutely going to be marked. After something like the J and 6 event, most people are afraid to protest here, and I could imagine at some point, if this happens all over the place, nobody will protest. Think about that. If they show the world that if you do a certain kind of protest or the one that's against what they're supposed to, which is the whole point of protest, that you will end up in jail for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years in Guantanamo Bay with no trial or something. If they show that kind of, culture around protest, then not only will people be discouraged to do it, but then if they do, if they know that they're going to be tagged and bagged from an AI system like this, nobody will protest. We're heading towards a really dark place. Dex, as far as this goes, they're using the Olympics as the reason, but how many of you, and do you believe that this is going to go on past the Olympics?
Oh, this is going to go on forever. Get used to it. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to go away anytime soon. I guess I should say, it's going to be everywhere. So, I think what we're going to start to see is more people trying to combat and create their own privacy, whether it be sunglasses and masks or camouflage shirts, as we've shown on this show before, where there's certain shirts that make it difficult for facial recognition to actually pick up the face of the person because it's distracted with the other elements that are on the clothing. Things like that, I think we're going to probably see a lot more, but don't that's only short lived, because as soon as everybody starts wearing a shirt like that, then the system will learn how to cope with it and determine what the shirts are, and then still go back and find the faces. So yeah, it's kind of a scary dystopian world we're headed towards. Technology can be great and technology can be very evil, and this is getting in that realm of when on one side you think it's good because it finds a bad guy, but on the flip side, it's also completely eroding your own personal privacy.
Look at this picture, how they have it. And I don't know how this transfers over to your cell phone, but they have this, and it says abandoned objects. So see how they have the rolling luggage? If they were to leave that there for more than a second, I'm sure it was color-coded, it would turn red, and they would say abandoned object, ding, 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 and somebody would be dispatched. Or in the near future, probably a robot would go out and grab it. That's already in the works too. As far as big events like this are going to have mobile devices, robots that would go and specifically for luggage too. They're building this luggage eater. It's like a monster. The thing will envelop. It has steel and titanium encasement, and it will basically roll over the luggage and cover it until the bomb squad gets there. So I thought that, I'm like, you're literally, if you leave your backpack on the ground or something, a couple seconds later, a robot's going to come rolling out and basically eat the thing. This, it's all in the excuse of keeping us safer. Anything that going forward is going to keep you safer or be a convenience, there's most likely some secondary purpose behind it. Do you guys disagree? Let me hear your thoughts on this. Thank you, everybody that's in chat. Looks like we have Karen Bill over on DLive, Dale Val, Crystal Dawn, it's nice to see you. And Dale Val, thank you for being here again. WIS Jen, thank you for, I don't think you ever miss a show. Thank you so much. Jet, we have DWD David's Way, another, thank you for being here. Judge Dredd, I haven't seen that movie in forever. Mana, my backpack always has food. Well, chomp, chomp, chomp. Baron Saturday, robots are a bad way to go. It's what's coming. They just, at some of the tech shows that they just put on, there's all these clips coming out. I forget what they call it. It's one of the robot tech shows. But they have specifically a worker that will replace 98% of all Amazon warehouse workers. So if you work in the Amazon warehouse, just be wary. They've already made this like stupid robot that, I mean, it looks like Johnny 5 or something, but it puts over and it walks. It's a bipedal robot that can load boxes and do convoy work, or not convoy, whatever the rolling things are called. The man who sacrificed freedom for security will have neither. That's a great quote. Carolyn Negro, thank you so much. Huru TV. Great shows are hard to miss, Adam. Thank you, WIS. I appreciate that. I love Shoutro. Gifted Grace. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad some of you guys do. Carol Monkme 69. Bongs up, everyone. Cheers. Conveyors. Yeah, that's what I said convoy. You're right. Conveyors, yeah. Commando Elite, listen here. Michigan Lifestyle that is why all of them are getting laid off. Dig deep, looking between the lines, think outside the sandbox. Well, just imagine anybody that has a normal job, or they're deleting the middle class. They're getting rid of us. That's what's happening. They want to make it either poor or rich, and they choose who's rich, which again, just a little side note, that last mega billions or whatever it was, the mega millions that was $2 billion or whatever it was, I swear they showed a Washington winner, and then it was like, oh, nope, no numbers will be drawn. and then certain websites showed like a Texas winner or something, and then they're like, nope, it's California. I wonder if it's in the billions. I wonder if they literally go, oh, we can't have that person win it. Because and then they go, oh, well, let's have it be some yuppie in California or something. I don't know. My wife even suggested that our sister down in California, if we ever get Mega Millions again, that we have her buy them. So they think it was bought in California. Let's see here. Badger1, thank you. I appreciate that. Mike S, thank you. Carol, I appreciate the super sticker there. Thank you. The Red Maple Grove, I'm watching Flight Radar 24 and no flights coming in, but a lot going out. Red Maple Grove, if you can, specify, are you U.S. and are they going out of just your state or out of the U.S.? Carol, again, thank you, and thank you. And B-Real Beast, thank you with Lord McCormick. You guys were the last ones out last show. And then going to war. Good news, the United States is 13 years behind in ammunition production. Dex, do you want to cover this?
Given everything that we have given away and donated to UKR, we're apparently, at least in one particular area, they did the math on it, and I want to say it was the Stingers. They said it would take us 13 years to replenish everything that's now gone. We've given away 200,000 rounds of artillery, rockets, tank rounds, etc., as part of a 33 billion sent in military aid. So the problem that we're seeing here is we're actually in a position where, and it's actually, and it even came up in the budget that they put together for the defense budget, something like 19.2 billion to help modernize the facility so they could actually improve on the shortages that we have. But that takes time, and it also takes money, and we have to come up with 19.2 billion to start doing that. But we're really in a really strange predicament where we have given away quite a bit of our munitions. Now, mind you, maybe some of the stuff is the older stuff, maybe Stingers we don't want to replace, but I have a feeling we probably would. And maybe there's, laser technology will be so much better because you don't have any munitions. It's just electricity and you charge it up. But that's not necessarily here, and it's not necessarily replacing all of this on the field right now. And we're certainly shipping away tons and tons and tons of our munitions to UKR. I think in one example they had given, and we had reported this last month, it took us I think it was 14,000 rounds of munition in a month, but UKR fired that many rounds in 48 hours. So 1 month of our munitions, and they got rid of it in less than 48 hours. So the state of affairs with our munitions across all this is not looking pretty. And every day that we continue to support them and continue to give away more and more and more, the worse it's going to get.
And some are not scratching their head on that one. This is something that even a regular Joe can kind of see. If we keep sending stuff over, and if it's not replacing fast enough, then it will create a backlog, and it will end up hurting us. Some believe that that's the purpose of all of this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Moody Mom, if you're here, say hello. We've got, by the way, thank you, Scooby-Doo Do Right, Flip TK. Make sure to treat your mods nice and go over and subscribe to them. Mary Nigri, hey, David Reed, what is happening? Good friend of mine, I love you. I hope you and Laura are doing good. And then Ian DeBow, thank you. David Wad, no way. Patricia Fries from Nevada, thank you for making it tonight. And then before we talk about weapons, firm says it can't meet soaring demand for artillery shells because TikTok data center is eating all the electricity. Not a joke. I do want to remind you guys, right now is a very unique sale on all of the energy generators because they are now doing our discount on top of all of their sales. So for the next 17 or 18 days, they will be doing our grandfathered in discount plus whatever sale they have on each of the units. Right now, there's $750 off on if you pre-order the Energy Flex 1500. So make sure to go check that out. And of course, the Flex 1500, the regular one, again, is great. If you don't want to go tactical and you don't need an internal heater, the Flex 1500 is what I have, and it works great. You can expand it up to 96 batteries. And again, this is something that you can mod and change its overall performance. You can add in a mod that actually adds in the ability to be a UPS or uninterrupted power supply. That is the UPS rapid charger. So if you already have one and you wanted it to turn into a UPS, you can actually do that. If you want to add in a mod like Legos that ends up letting it have 12 panels plugged in instead of 4, you can do that as well. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy and use the code Marfoogle to get savings. Dex, go ahead.
I was just going to say that sale may be up at the end of the month because we had announced it on the 15th and it was supposed to be a 2-week long sale. So we'll have to see if they expand it. So, but for now it's still good, but you've only got, 4 days maybe.
Okay. So I thought it was until the 15th. So it started on the 15th and it's most likely up in a couple days. So I wouldn't miss out on that. To be perfectly clear, if you are getting the Flex 1500 or the Tactical is a pre-order, so you're going to have to wait for that. Totally worth it if you do want to go all out. The Flex 1500, it has lithium batteries. The lithium is in high demand. Just want to let you guys know, it's not their fault. They are fighting with every other company in the world over this lithium. When they get the lithium shipments, they make the batteries and the units and they send them out. So some folks, including myself, had to wait 4 months for mine. I waited closer to 5 when these first came out. Now, I don't know if it's even that that much of a wait, but if you do, this is worth it. This is a system that's silent, doesn't take gas, and gives you unlimited power from the sun. It's awesome. There's other ones out there, but these are made like tanks. They're reliable, and that's one of the things. If you get a solar generator, you're going to want something that works, especially in a really horrible scenario. These, again, can do almost everything. So make sure to go check them out. But if you want something right now, don't get yourself a YouTube ad made in China thing. Go over and get the X2. That has a built-in battery. I have 2 of these, which I can dual link, and it not only doubles the capacity, but it also doubles the battery time. It is really, really awesome. It is, again, something that, and the output. So you actually get twice the output when you dual link them. But that is available, and those ship out really, really quick. That's lithium iron phosphate, which has over 6,000 charge cycles. It's tested for that and most likely more. So make sure to go check it out. marfooglenews.com/energy. That helps us out. We're independent. We do not have a multi-channel network to protect us. We have the Foogle fam, and that's it. But you can really help us other than this is just share and like the videos. Share out our short shareable content on our other channel. Suggest us to a friend or family, and that is just as helpful, if not more. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. And then Weapons Firm says it can't meet soaring demand for artillery shells because TikTok data center is eating all of the electricity. Yeah, can't make this stuff up. It says an arms manufacturer complained that a TikTok data center is eating up all the electricity in the region, meaning that the company cannot keep up with the surging global demand for ammunition. Experts are increasingly commenting on the massive demands that big tech companies and how energy usage by their data centers is causing issues for other industries. It says, quote, "We are concerned because we see our future growth is challenged by the storage of cat videos." And by the way, that's kind of a dig at YouTube because, I'm sorry, TikTok's not cat videos. That's YouTube. I guess there's a fair amount. Said Morten Brandstad, the CEO of Norwegian arms manufacturer Nammo, with the Financial Times. It says Brandstad said that the demand for artillery rounds was 15 times higher than normal, a trend driven by the conflict in UKR, which was featured heavy artillery use. UKR, for instance, would like to increase its daily use. I like how they put that. UKR would like to increase its daily usage of rounds. they want to fire more, from 6,000 to 65,000 artillery shells. We would really like to be killing more people, right? Insider couldn't immediately establish where NAMO shells are being used in UKR. Its customer base, as described in a 2021 annual report, is overwhelmingly EU and NATO states, which has been making mass donations to UKR since Russia invaded. Well, you can pretty much put together that if it's 15 times normal, that they're probably sending it towards, I don't know, the active war that's happening right now. Either way, though, it's almost like, is it a coincidence? And this one might actually be that TikTok is further hampering this side of things, right? Dex, I thought that was pretty interesting. Obviously, these data centers use huge amounts of power, but where is the actual power center? Is it?
This is 120 kilometers north of Oslo. It's in Norway. The energy company there said they do not have spare capacity, that the extra capacity they have has already been promised to TikTok. So the manufacturer is trying to expand the plant and needs more electricity, and, requesting, a higher output from the power company, and the power company won't give it to them. It's not available.
So I don't understand. So they get to a certain point and they can't go further because they can't power more, or does their power shut down? Or I don't get that. So did they want to build another wing and they just don't have enough power for it? Or I guess I don't.
Yeah, I guess if you think of a plant maybe having, just pick an odd number, 500 units of measure of electricity, and they want to double the plant, they need to double the amount of power. And the power company then has to roll that power in, whether it, on wires or using the existing wire if they have it. But if the plant can't produce it and supply that to them, that's where the problem comes. And, some of these manufacturing plants use a lot of power, depending on the equipment they're running. So, and obviously the data centers use a lot of power because they run their power 24/7. They're not just in bursts when they're doing manufacturing. These servers are running nonstop, and it's not just the hard drive that's spinning, or the, well, not hard drives anymore, but it's not just the equipment and the fan that's spinning in the computer that's running the processors. It's also the air conditioning systems that have to run 24/7 to keep the heat out of the facility, and et cetera. So it becomes very power hungry when you look at these large data centers as they continue to expand. And obviously a company like TikTok had gone in there and established their plans for how much power they wanted, and they've basically, don't have any left from the power company for anyone else to buy more power.
I'm just surprised that this person actually said, can't rule it out that it wasn't a coincidence that Chinese-owned TikTok was deliberately impeding the expansion of an arms company. I will not rule it out that it's not by pure coincidence that this activity is close to a defense company. He said, can't rule it out. So I said it like 5 times, right? Which one came first? Why wouldn't TikTok be told, hey, the arms company is using up all of this power, so you are going to have to move somewhere else? You would think that this company would be over that company, but who knows how many millions of dollars they pay people off to do the opposite. Abide by me, I think it was said, I've lived in California for 65 years. Stop bashing. Well, if you've lived in California, and all of California is not that. I have good friends. My sister's there. My good friends, Shannon and BOD, are down in California. Actually, there's a really great. In fact, one of my favorite group of people was in our Discord group in the California group. Hands down, some of the coolest people ever. There's plenty of really awesome people. Eileen is in California. Some of my favorite people are in California. But of course, I guess it's not all parts of California. There are really great parts of California. It's a beautiful place, but at the same time, there are parts, and the powerhouse, the part that's making all the money, Hollywood and all of the California that is the big money-making corporations, that is where the evil comes from, and it is highly centered there in California. Same with New York, same here in Seattle. If you think about all the tech companies, all of the just evil corporations out there, they are centered there. California, I forget what it's like in the top 5 of how much money our whole country makes, and Florida is, of course, up there. California, Washington. But yeah, the California and its laws and its governing of everything. If you've lived there for 65 years, it would be hard not to say that there's not a lot of really crazy people around you. That's my opinion. Of course, we can differ opinions, though. We can have totally opposite opinions on it. But I'm not trying to bash all Californians. Just half of them. Just kidding. Sort of. Dex, go ahead.
Hey, I was just going to mention though, the current rule that they have there in Norway is it's first come first serve. So I would assume if it was a defense issue for their government, that the government would come in and change that and say, hey, we have, we'll enact an act or do something like that to allow the military company or the munitions company to have the ability to buy that power. But apparently, and it's not just TikTok, by the way. There is a lot of data centers that are going up in that region, and they go there because of, as I mentioned earlier, air conditioning is very expensive. So when you can go up there in a colder region, you don't have to have as much AC to keep the equipment cool. And I also believe Norway has had a lot of investment in renewable energy, hydropower, and other things like that. And a lot of these data centers are trying to be, net zero by that infamous 2030 date. So there's a huge demand for the amount of power that's coming out of those places. So yeah, a plant like that is definitely going to be up against these big tech companies.
Yep, the big tech is ahead of all of them, I'm sure. IA Captain says our veterans are on the street. Old Scott says we lived in Kent when my dad worked for Boeing. It's crazy. Around here, almost everybody has family or had family that worked for Boeing. My mom, dad, grandpa, and grandma all worked for Boeing. My mom was a Rosie the Riveter. Rest in peace. She was literally one of those Rosie the Riveters there. But everybody here knows somebody who works there or worked there. It's crazy. Everybody. Boeing was the main source of work for just forever. But of course, now Boeing has turned into part of the military industrial complex, just insane, making insane projects. They're helping with the lasers for the Space Force. Like they're doing all sorts of stuff. You guys heard most of my opinion, and if you haven't, make sure to go over to Marfoogle News, our main channel for the short shareable clip. But essentially, Israel is having protests as well. Huge protests. And Netanyahu delays judicial overhaul after mass protests. Dex, do you want to give folks your opinion on this, since they've most likely already heard mine?
Well, this is a big deal. We talked about it a week ago. We said, this things are starting to heat up. Keep an eye on what's happening here, especially because of the fact that Israel is also trying to militarily go after and contain the nuclear expansion in Iran. So if how they can pull that off while they're having this go on in their homeland is very questionable. So, and the other thing to think about is this is not just a bunch of people that are mad at the government. This is a division in the ideals amongst the people there. So it's not just a whole bunch of people are mad that their leaders making them retire later. This is a fundamental difference in a break or a split and a division amongst the population there. And that's why they are trying to avoid literally the word civil conflict, civil war. That's what they're trying to avoid happening, because these protests are getting to the level where they're doing different things, but there's people that are against or on either side. So when you think about that and you think about the division that's been created, and we've seen this division in lots of other countries, we've got it here in the U.S. significantly. We've got it in lots of other countries. In addition to just having unrest or upset populations, having division amongst the population, and then adding that layer in it just really gets it to that fever pitch moment where things can really pop off. And so, long story short, That's just for those that haven't been paying attention. I know everybody doesn't always pay attention to what goes on in the ME, but that's where they were. There was almost 1 million people out in the streets, and they've now decided to ratchet back, and take a breather, so to speak. They being the politicians, and try to come to a resolution here, which is probably the smart thing to do, because I don't think they really want to have this type of conflict go down, because I think ultimately there's other things on their plate they're trying to accomplish, and they're not going to be able to do it if their country's in turmoil.
I was just going to pull up the picture here. This is some of the pictures that have been published of Israel here. This is, you can see people on all of the street poles, people on decks and climbing bus stops, and actually reminds me of 12th and Pike, the night that Obama was put into office. It was nuts. It looked like this on 12th and Pike that night. But yeah, and people were climbing everything. This must have been insane to be down there with this many people. What was that? Somebody said, I don't know anybody that works at Boeing. I guess I'm curious, are you a plant? Or not a plant? What do they call them? Where did your family live here all your life? Because most people that have lived here their entire life, especially back in the 60s and 70s, it was like you probably worked for Boeing or knew somebody that did. If your family's from here, then there's family friends, I guarantee you, that you probably don't even know about that were working at Boeing. It had all kinds of jobs, from janitorial to riveting to almost everything. But yeah, if you are from Seattle area or anywhere around, it's pretty crazy. Let's see here. And then, oh man. And then North Korea fires 2 more missiles as U.S. sends carrier. So on top of the tests and all of the drills that are going on with South Korea, they are actually sending in one of their major carriers. We always try to follow all of the huge movements, or at least the huge public movements, especially of the Navy. Fighter jets roared off the USS Nimitz as the nuclear-powered U.S. aircraft carrier and its battle group began exercises with South Korean warships on Monday, hours after North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles in an apparent protest of the Allies' expanding drills, which, of course, they say is a rehearsal to invade, right? And to take them over. It says the 7th missile test this month underscored the heightening tensions in the region, as both the North's weapons tests and the U.S.-South Korean joint military exercises have intensified in a cycle of tit for tat. The launches may have been timed for the arrival of the USS Nimitz, and its strike group included a guided missile cruiser and 2 destroyers, which engaged in air defense exercises and other drills with South Korean warships in the waters near Jeju Island. Jang Do-young, a South Korean Navy spokesperson, said that the drills were aimed at sharpening joint operational capabilities and demonstrating the U.S. commitment to defend its ally with the full range of options, including nuclear, in the face of North's escalating nuclear and missile threats. The North and South are a huge flashpoint. Many of the folks and the incredibly some of the people we trust directly, they believe North Korea, out of all of the things going on with Iran and with China and with Russia, they actually believe North Korea will be the center of whatever bad thing is coming at us. They believe the North will do some sort of catastrophic event before anybody else, which most people kind of poo-poo North Korea. Obviously, they are kind of a joke. People make fun of Kim Jong-un all day, every day. But it is a rogue nation. It's a hermit country. They are, I believe, a puppet of other countries. And I do think that they could be used by somebody else to do harm to us. By us here in the United States, and most likely if you're in South Korea or somewhere else. They could be used to get this whole thing kicked off, to get all of these further agendas moving. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear your opinions on it. Obviously, my mind can be changed, but I believe they are a real threat because of what is going on right now and what weapons they actually possess. But of course, there's going to be a huge chunk of people saying, "Oh, they're just a distraction." Everything right now is a distraction, according to every other person. But I don't believe it is, and I will say that with confidence from who I have talked to. I believe they might end up triggering things that get this thing rolling. What do you guys think, though? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. Dex, do you want to comment on that before we move into the emergency UN meeting that happened or they called for over the weekend?
Not really. There's nothing more to say
Yeah,
than we talk about with them. It's just, it's like, come on, like, these guys are just over and over and over again.
One day, I think that it's going to be
one day it'll be real. It might even be an accident.
The boy that cried wolf, right? And I think they're nuts. And if you look at if Kim, I don't know if Kim's even alive though. With AI voice and video and deepfakes, I don't even know if he's alive. Why would his sister speak in the first place? That's common sense. It should still be questioned. Like, why was she talking? It doesn't, that sounds bad, but in their culture, that's how it is. And then everybody over the weekend was pretty freaked out about this. Some of my peers. I mean, it's, this is nuts. But they didn't do an emergency meeting. In fact, the last emergency meeting of the UN was February 22nd of this year, a day before, or I guess it was kind of when it was covered, it was technically on the anniversary of the beginning of the invasion. That was the last emergency meeting of the UN. UKR called for an emergency UN meeting over Vlad's nuclear blackmail in Belarus, in them putting nukes in Belarus, or at least tactical nukes. That doesn't mean one will happen, but if it does, and it might, because, UKR is actually probably has somebody up their rear talking for him, but then something might go a little bit further. If you don't know what they mean by Putin's nuclear blackmail in Belarus, essentially Putin has said that he is going to be putting tactical nukes in Belarus. When talked to about it, he said, well, USA does it all the time. They put tactical nukes everywhere in all of their allies' countries. What's different about this? We're allies with Belarus. We have tactical nukes. We're going to put them there. It said that Putin announced the move on Sunday, framing it as a warning to Western countries. UKR's government called to the UN to counter Russia's nuclear blackmail, arguing Putin had made Belarus its nuclear hostage. But the one thing I want to point out, and because UKR basically says that the Belarusian people do not want it, whatever else. Either way, this doesn't make it any scarier in UKR, because if you think about it, it's a border country, but all of Russia has nuclear weapons and tactical nukes. If they wanted to send one, they can just send one. This is more geopolitical than anything else. Dex, do you agree that this is more of like, this is just, this is like a point, right? Otherwise, it's not that it's any scarier to have nukes in Belarus because it's no closer than Russia. It's not like it's, it's just, what is it? North of it or south? Is it south of UK or it's north of South?
No, it's north. It's on the north side. So I mean, there's plenty of border of UKR that is with Russia, and they have ships at the south, so they can hit them from anywhere they want. Moving them into Belarus, I think going into Belarus, if anybody's going to be crying, it ought to be Lithuania and Poland, because they're the ones that actually border up against Belarus and Latvia as well. So, they should be the ones that are probably more upset about this because it's coming closer to them. But again, I think it's more of a stage, more of a more of words than actual meaning, because these things, they can reach wherever they need to reach from the borders that they already have, and where they can place them anywhere they want, meaning inside their own country. So inside Russia. So it is a it is like a geopolitical move. It is, it does get headlines. It does, it does worry some because you're putting tacticals on the move. You're showing a sign that you're willing to potentially maybe get closer to using them because you're willing to put them in other places. But I think this is more along the lines of, hey, we know you're not going to like it if we put it there. So we're going to put it there because you do it to us. If you're going to do it to us, we're going to do it to you. And I think that's really what it is. Not that it really means that all of a sudden they're going to have a tactical advantage over the next guy.
Huru TV says, all these nukes, how in the Daffy Duck do they manage them all? Well, the answer to that is quite scary. They don't. There's been missing nukes for years. I think every country has lost a nuke. There's a bunch of missing nukes, and nobody knows where they are. So they're probably not missing. If they probably know who has them, but secretly. But there's a bunch of missing nukes. So there's a lot of them. And then
was missing powder cake the other day.
Yeah, I mean the stuff to make them. We cover all sorts of stories where it's like the stuff to make them are all over the place. Let's see here. Moving nukes there is dangerous because of those people. There is a nuke missing in the Baltic, says Jeremy Perry. Huru TV, do Aussies freak out about the China economic military aspirations? I bet some of them do. I know some of our Fugel fam from Australia. They are worried about it. Australia is. That's why they're ordering nuclear submarines, and they want them quick within 2 years instead of 15. And then amid strained U.S. ties, China finds unlikely friend in Utah. Dex, do you want to explain why Utah is so important?
I don't think it's about Utah, guys. This is kind of the most creepiest, and if anything, bringing to true life what we've seen in the movies. When I think about like Red Dawn and the first one and the second one, how these adversary countries had built these relationships with the local governments so that when they decided to do an invasion, they already had their people in place. That may be taking it a little too far, but probably not. So listen to what's happening. So in Utah, there's been an investigation that found that Xi's country, or China, has actually been spending years building relationships with the state officials and the lawmakers there. They have actually overturned laws or changed legislation that Beijing didn't like. They have basically built this, and this is the only place they've investigated, but they have built these relationships in the state at the local level, circumventing the federal government, so to speak, right? So my question is, where else is this going on? And we've heard people report on different things that have gone on with money from Xi's country. We've seen it in universities. That one's kind of an obvious one. But I can only imagine what else they're doing to entrench themselves throughout our nation, and not doing it at the federal level, but doing it at the local level. And that's what's happening in this Utah story. So go read it. It's interesting. It's fascinating. But I think the bigger picture, the more scary picture, is this is just one place that we know about. That this investigation, these journalists have been investigating and found out all this stuff. But where else is this going on? Is this up and down the West Coast? Is it all throughout America? What type of investments has China made within our local governments, and who's holding those purse strings, so to speak?
Yes, who indeed is holding the strings, right? Let's see here. I'm going to switch you back over to line now. Let's see. Okay, and then who is pulling the strings? This is a plot breakdown. In an alternate 1980s, the United States stands alone as communism grows stronger when Soviet soldiers invade a small Colorado town. Brothers Jed, Patrick Swayze, and Matt Eckert, Charlie Sheen, escape with friends to the forest with their father, Tom. A prisoner of the invading army, the children decide to fight against the Soviets. This is why you see everybody talking about the Beaverines and the Wolverines and stuff like that. It's because they stood back and they named themselves after their high school town. It says as the country comes under increasing attack, the group teams up with Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Tanner. And I had no idea up until recently. There's like whole sites dedicated to Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Tanner, who was a fictional character that they have actually done like a bunch of stuff on. Like the people tell their friends and family they worship him as like the ultimate patriot. It's like a running joke because he was such a hero and stuff in that movie. You'll have to look up Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Tanner and you'll see all the stuff I'm talking about, but it's funny. But what's not funny is this, and it's like kind of a mix. What happened in that movie is that public leaders already knew, and the new Red Dawn as well, the same thing, where essentially it showed that they had already had plans by them, the enemy, already had plans with local law enforcement, local government, and that when they dropped in, the local government just put their hands up and they already had things in place so that the local government would actually keep control of their towns and things, because it actually makes a lot of sense. If you have to take over a country like this, you would need things in place and familiar faces that people would, listen to. So they had all of these people in power already shifted over to their side. And when they landed, it was basically set up like that. If you haven't seen Dragon Day, it's eerie how many folks believe that that is actually a realistic scenario. The fact that in Dragon Day, they had the local sheriff and the local governor and the local people. The local sheriff actually had red bracelets all pre-set up that would be tracker and tracers for the people. And if you didn't take the red bracelet, then you would not get rations. You wouldn't get food and you couldn't travel. But if you did have the red bracelets up until 3 p.m., you could go into town and you could travel around and you could get rations because there's no longer a money system. You have to get your rations and like that. And you could work and do all of that. And in that movie, they show all of the devices having a backdoor, a chip inside all of the devices that basically China turns off. And they do an EMP at the same time. They knock down everything, and then they come in and it's all good. What is really freaky is I guarantee you there is an actual plan that China has already put out and think tanked, and it goes exactly like this. I just wonder if Utah would be that town. And by the way, where they found all of this influence, that's just one state. We know that there are these different police stations opening up all over the world, and it just so happens, if you look at the map of them, in over 30 countries, almost all of them, I believe almost every single one, is in a NATO country. Why are they opening up what is some consider spy stations in all of these different countries? For relations, to do the same thing that they were doing in Utah? I don't know. But it makes more sense than the crazy stuff they tell us. Look at Hollywood. Look at what is going on with the movies. Look at how many countries are starting to look exactly like that one. Look at what is currently happening with the protests and everything else. That's the crazy part. Look at this. Let's go to DuckDuckGo. What did China just do? And nobody sees this as like a thing? Like China to raise retirement age to deal with aging population. I mean, this was just a week ago. 2 weeks ago. This is the same time period. And I guess, great minds think alike. Or at least that's what Macron tells Xi. That's what Netanyahu tells Xi, right? It's a possibility. And then before we move on, again, make sure, go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP. There is a way to defend yourself against a Dragon Day scenario or a Red Dawn or any of these. This is a device that can actually protect your vehicles from not only EMP, but CME. Regardless of, again, what's happening in our future, there's ways to protect yourself from all of these different events. at least ways to be comfortable through them. This can protect against all 3 phases of an EMP, and it can protect you against a CME, a coronal mass ejection. So not only will it protect your cars, your trucks, your boats, your RVs, your motorcycles, your ham radios, your generators, your solar generator in the case of the energy, it can also protect your home and be wired in by an electrician. That's the only one you have to do that. But it will actually protect everything within 250 feet of where it is wired in that are plugged in. So anything that's plugged in, you don't have to sit there and put everything in your house in a Faraday cage. It just has to be plugged into the wall and it will be protected. It grounds the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your devices. So this is a great thing to have in your car, and you don't need an electrician to put one in your car. You need about 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, you could keep your truck or your car rolling for you to bug out, or for you to get home to bug in, or to get you wherever you want to go. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. This is the same company that agencies like DHS and DOD are utilizing, and of course the DEMSO team to officially help protect the Texas grid. So again, if they're protecting themselves, why aren't we? Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. It's a family-owned, veteran-owned business, and it's 100% American-made down to the screws. So you know that there's not going to be any backdoor chips in it. marfooglenews.com/EMP. Again, that's EMP Shield at marfooglenews.com/EMP. You'll get $50 off with our discount, and that always stacks. That's something that's awesome about these guys. Anytime they do a sale, that always stacks on top of our link. So especially around any holiday, any kind of, even President Day, whatever sale they end up doing, it will always stack on top of them. Okay, and then China wants Taiwan. Hold on, let me fix something here. Oops, I had that going the whole time. China wants Taiwan for more than historical value. Could disrupt global power dynamic. This is kind of a common sense thing if you follow what's going on. If they take Taiwan, obviously it's more than just like, oh, well, historically we had power over them. It then extends China, and it takes control of a strait. One of the straits that is a huge shipping juggernaut. Dex, do you want to explain why this would, and this is especially why Japan is involved. This is why Japan is switching their constitution from being self-defense to it being in the top 5 military budgets in the world now, overnight.
Exactly. It's not. And so, we talk about the chips and how important chips are. And yes, that's a big deal. If they took over, Taiwan tomorrow, it would probably set us back a few years, maybe even up to 5. We're certainly doing things right now to mitigate that, whether companies are moving to other countries. We're investing in chip production plants here in the U.S. to try to offset that huge investment that's just stuck there at TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor. But it's not just about the chips. I mean, that's part of it. But if Xi rolls in and takes over, that's a huge landmass. It's a huge landmass that then expands across that water. It then gives greater control of shipping lanes. It gives greater it gives another point of where they can move their own military equipment, their own nukes, their own planes and boomers that can launch from. And all of those things are that's critical to the Pacific there. So it is a big deal on many fronts. The chips is just one of it. The global economic portion is just one of it, but also the military capability, the land, and the location. Also, even though I know we talk, it's only, they say it's 100 miles off. Yeah, that's the first little island. But once you get to the big island of Taiwan proper, you're getting a little further out. So it's definitely would give them a huge advantage against the U.S. in the Pacific theater.
The quote here, we're talking about a place that manufactures chips which make the entire world economy move. And we are way behind when it comes to manufacturing those chips here in the United States. So let me ask you this. If we're 5 years behind, we've already have plans to put in our own chip manufacturing places. right? The factories that make these. We've already had the president of Intel stand up in front of President JB and say, we're going to go back to, made in America, and we're going to make chips here. I think it's common sense. They're doing that because China's about to take Taiwan and the manufacturing capabilities that they once had. Even if they destroy it, well, then that destroys it for everybody. Guess what? Even if they have boom, 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 if nothing is set up, then the whole world is screwed. I don't know if they'll let that happen. They might. They might take. I don't know what they'll do there, but that's a complicated scenario. If they do just blow up everything that's important to manufacturing chips there, because that's what they said that was a possible plan, then who picks up the slack for that up until we have all of these other factories in place? Tell me this: would China wait 5 years until we have our own? Or would they take it now where even if it's 2 years where they are in charge of everything, if they hold all of the cars for even a year, even for 6 months, think about how that could put them ahead of everybody else, especially if they have the sole power behind it. Not to mention all of the other countries that are doing trade with them. Dex, we have a bunch of new people. Can you find that graph of trade since 1981? I'll only show it for 10 seconds. It is, I had it on my bookmarks. But if anybody sees that and you guys know what I'm talking about, I'll just show it one time, just right through. Anybody knows what is happening here in the world. And yes, there's tons of distractions, but I think one thing isn't. That country is behind most of this. And they're high up friends. They're way above all of these other people. Think about all the evil people you talk about and everybody has rumors about. They have all had dinner with one president, that president. They all have those oligarchs at their house. The Belarus, the Yilly Bates, the EpiPens, all of them have straight up relations, and even the Elons. Let's see here. Okay. Dex is screener.
Yeah, screener.
Okay, let's see here. You guys are, for those of you that haven't seen this, you're gonna trip. And I know you've seen it before, but this is something everybody should know. And there's plenty of people that have not seen this. And even if one person who has never seen this sees it, I guarantee you it's gonna blow your mind. It's surprising. And all of my friends and family members that see this, they go, what? They're just blown away by it. Absolutely blown away. Let's see here. Okay, so check this out. This is, let's start back at, here's 1980. Just to explain what you're looking at. Blue is, they do greater trade with the U.S. Okay? Who is the larger trading partner? U.S. Light blue is equal. Light red, it goes on either side. And then full on red is China. And this is going to progress from 1980 to, I believe, 2016. See how the blue is slowly disappearing. There's a couple geoeconomical events that have happened. You see a little bit more red. Then you see a lot more red. Then you see a lot of red. You see red everywhere. And by 2018, almost the entire world, besides the United States itself, Canada, Alaska, Mexico, and this tip right here, and then some European countries, which, by the way, a lot of them are in the lower reds or in the light blues. I mean, do people ignore this? 1980. Just be silent for a second so people can absorb that. You tell me that they don't have their hand in almost everything. Let's see here. Let's go over Australia, Tibet is an island. Says Charlie don't serve. The bride doesn't go through the Great Tribulation. See, guess the brick is going to happen then. Escape from America. I agree with you, Beth. I don't know what Beth said. I talked about stuff at the bar and got in a fight in it. All right, and then, I mean, does that not? I mean, I'll just ask you guys. Does that at all kind of make you think, maybe somebody is fiddling with stuff? And all of that trade, you got to think there's a lot of money coming in. They're not Russia. Russia's got the GDP of New York. New York, just New York, makes as much money as all of Russia. Not China, though. All the billionaires of the world, I think they surpassed us on that too, come from China and the U.S. And now they've actually surpassed us somehow. But by the way, their billionaires compared to ours, they have to give chunks of it up to their government. And then Putin, and they have no bureaucracy. They can do horrible, labor rights violations to get there. They can basically get to that end spot however they want to. And then Putin and Xi's plot to control the internet will leave the West in the dust. Dex, do you want to go over this and how does this how will this affect all of us?
Well, I think we understand how very clearly how both Xi runs his internet, which is very locked down. They censor. They do not allow certain things to come into their country. If they don't want access to something, they shut it down. And then they filter people. They look and they see what they're talking about, and they hold that against them. The same can happen in Vlad's country. He separated his internet. That happened a couple years ago. We covered it widely here when they did it. They did it overnight. They separated it so that they could run their internet if the rest of the internet wanted to come after them or come down. And by doing so, they basically put in place the same types of systems that are used in Xi's country to control the population. We haven't seen as much of that happen in Russia, but that doesn't mean it can't, and it has happened. It just doesn't happen at the same level. There's just difference. They use the sticks a little differently there, but it's the same tech. So what's been going on? So the internet as we know it is made up of a whole lot of protocols, and I'm getting a little geeky here, and I'm going to try and keep it as simple as I can for everyone. But these protocols allow things to happen, like a packet to move from one place to another, or for you to be able to send an email. There's a protocol for how that works. All of those protocols have been built, and they're stacks of these protocols, and there's basically they're technical agreements about how something should work across this open architecture of the internet. Well, there's two primary forums. There's plenty of others, but there's two primary forums that control this. One is the ITU, which is a UN organization. And the research that was recently done on this claims that since the ITU elected its first secretary general from China back in 2014, that they have run around 30% of the chairman and vice chair positions at the ITU, meaning they have a much more significantly larger control of it than, say, the US, which is at 7.6%, or the UK, which has had 6.1% of those types of positions in this forum. Okay. And so think about how Xi has infiltrated other forums like the W, the H, followed by that other letter, which is O. They've infiltrated that organization and have a significant number of their own nationals that are participating there. So that's the ITU. And then the other organization is the IETF, which is the Internet Engineering Task Force. And now that's an individual group, but the interesting thing is there's a lot of seats that can be brought to that table through companies like Huawei, and others and other people that are in their engineering worlds in Xi's country that have been there, and they tend to lobby in a lot of protocols or changes into the system and overwhelm it. and some make it through and many don't. A lot of them get pushed back. But the point is, they're doing this to craft the way the internet is going to evolve into a way that they want it to be, which gives them more control. So, for example, this technology called new IP, which is a replacement for how our internet protocol works, our IPs work. Xi has a version of that, obviously, with Huawei that's very significant and gives him a great amount of control on how they can manage not just the bandwidth and the technology and the capabilities, but the population, and like turn people on and off and censor and do all those things. So it's really interesting point of view where they've looked at how much they have not just participated in these forums, but they've sort of infiltrated, as this author puts it, these forums so that they can control and influence at a greater level than anyone else how the changes that get brought forward to how the internet works are being created by them. The other interesting thing, though, that's going on is there's a lot of what some might call low-hanging fruit. And that's all of these undeveloped nations or underdeveloped nations that are all becoming, technically advanced now because they're bringing on technology to them. So across Africa, certain places, at certain other locations where they basically will just take any type of equipment or any type of technology because it's new to them. And Xi has been making tons of inroads into that, as we've known, like how he does with the ports. He'll go in and do a port deal. Well, they're going in and doing these tech deals to bring in this new technology, obviously with Huawei, ZTE and others, and bringing that gear in that uses the standards that they want to create and they're trying to bring about. So it is a very scary thing that a lot of us don't actually see. We're not going to pay attention because we don't get into the weeds of how the internet, which is this big open environment of technology that's built on these open protocols that people go to these forums and agree upon how they're going to do it, is actually being infiltrated and directed by Xi. So that's kind of an interesting thing. It's also Vlad as well, but I would say it's probably more so coming from China specifically. So I hope I simplified that enough. I know it's a very geeky subject, but it's also very near and dear to our hearts because the internet is a global thing. It works everywhere, and it's something that is probably the only place we'll have left to have any form of freedom on. And it seems every time we turn around, at least on the big tech side, those freedoms are being stripped because of because they're private companies and they can get away with it. But when you take that layer out and you just look at the fundamentals of how the internet should work, you should have free flowing information from anywhere. And what these folks are trying to do is take that away and make sure that only the powers and be can control all of the flow of information.
If they clamp down on it, and completely control the flow of information. If you control the information, you control the world. You see, they're the only country that has over 1 million on a payroll that sit around. Each person is a person on the computer that can verify as a human being, that then can sway whatever opinion they want. They can have that person and 1 million others go in and like something, share something, dislike something, make comments about how it's fake. These are not bots. These are human beings that can't be kicked off because then they can go, no, I'm a real person. I'm this person. Here's my license. And they cannot be booted. And they secretly get orders handed down to them like, oh, we want you to go over and say, oh, I don't believe this is real. And this is why I don't believe it. They can tell them to do whatever. The thing that you're seeing with the AI faces, the deep fakes, which there's a comment here. Ray the Way says, well, like you said, Marf, with all of these deep fakes and AI tech, what if Kim is showing his sister through deep fakes or faking his death, strikes the U.S. and emerges from the shadows? I don't know these days. So say the AI is now so good, and the voice AI is so good, where you can have a voice and you're saying that is our president, that is Kim Jong, and it's their voice, even their inclination, the way they talk, even if they have a speech impediment, if they have a lisp, this AI has now gotten this down. It can do anybody. And it is so real, you will not tell the difference. I guarantee you they've already used it on public things. I actually I have a thought that they've used it on the Tate audio that they had all chopped up. But when it gets to the point where nobody knows what's real and what's not, and a couple pranksters do the wrong thing, well, then they're going to call for digital ID for every single person on the internet. Why? Because, well, we have to. It's for our safety. It's our convenience. If a false presidential thing goes out and the president says that missiles heading towards our country, God be with you. Please get your family into a shelter, and everyone across the country, they hack into the right system. They get the whole country down in shelters or in their basements, whatever. All of a sudden, some of an event like that, everybody will go, oh, well, we can't just have anybody being, accessing this technology. Well, they'll say, oh, well, it's already out there and there's no way to put it back. They go, well, we'll have to do something different. We'll have to get a digital ID on every single person on the internet. That way they can track and trace every single person, regardless if you have a VPN or not. If you have a VPN, you might not be able to use the internet. There's scary things coming down the road if this keeps continuing the way it is going. Problem, reaction, solution, right? It's all coming if something doesn't change. And then Russia to station nuclear arms in Belarus, says Putin. We've kind of already gone over this. Again, you can go read this article by France 24. But essentially it says the Kremlin took Belarus as nuclear hostage, or at least that's what the Secretary of UKR's National Security and Defense Council, Alexei Danilov, wrote on Twitter, adding that it was a step towards internal destabilization of the country. Putin's statement about placing tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, a step towards internal destabilization of the country, maximizes the level of negative perception and public rejection of Russia and Putin in Belarusian society. The Kremlin took Belarus as a nuclear hostage. It says Putin has repeatedly issued thinly veiled threats that he could use nuclear weapons in UKR, reviving Cold War-era fears. He also said that he could deploy depleted uranium ammunition if Kiev receives such munitions from the West, following a British suggestion that it could supply UKR. There is nothing unusual here either. The United States has been doing this for decades. They have long placed their tactical nuclear weapons in the territory of their allies, Putin said, which... It is true. Again, though, that's why I say this is more political than anything other, right? But it doesn't take away from the freaky factor of it. And then Russia threatens the U.S. with unique weapon capable of destroying it. So here's the thing. That's the whole news. That's it. That's everything here. When I first read this, I was like, I go, am I missing something? Okay, what is it? We don't know. They're just putting out that there's a unique weapon that could destroy the entire U.S., but that's all we know. It says the Security Council of Russia claimed that Russia has a unique weapon capable of destroying even the U.S. And this was the quote from Petrushev. Russia has a unique weapon which is capable of destroying any opponent, mainly the U.S., in case there is a threat to Russia's existence. He also added that American politicians certainly that Russia will not be able to respond to a preventive strike by the U.S. is a short-sighted and dangerous foolishness. Petrushev stated that after the collapse of the USSR, Russia had allegedly corrected its mistakes and now can facilitate both internal stability and protection from external dangers, which is kind of freaky to think about since they have built shelters for everyone. At least, like, they can house all of the citizens of Moscow. Everyone knows. They actually did a drill with their entire Moscow city, and 40,000 plus people were involved where they actually went down to their shelters and they told the public. On their public television, they tell people how to prep, which some objectively devil's advocate look at this and go, this is actually not a bad thing. We have demonized prepping. This is news from a prepping standpoint. And what has happened here is they have put a stigma that if you prep, you're crazy. You're expecting some end of the world scenario. When really, we already went through a horrible scenario in 2019, and all of us preppers knew it was coming. We saw the signs. We saw the prep that they were doing. We saw the graphs. We saw what the W and the H and the O was doing and what graphs they were putting out. And we're like, why are they doing all of this? Why are they spending so much time preparing for something that, it's not going to happen? But we saw through that. We go, okay, this is really weird. They're doing tabletop exercise and all these things. Those tabletop exercises, they don't just do these for no reason. These people do not meet at Davos and all of this and talk about things that will most likely happen if it's not. When Davos says that there's a 93% chance that we will most likely have a catastrophic cyber event in the next 2 years, I believe it. And I believe it because there are things that are telegraphed, and there are things that if you know the pattern and know what to look for, you can prepare for it. And if it doesn't happen, great. You have extra prep, you have extra supplies. Over there, they have told people how to preserve food, how to do all this, and that is one thing that you can say. That is actually a good thing. It's something that the entire world, Norway, I believe Norway is the one who does it, Sweden. There's several countries that do this normal TV. Just like you would watch, 90 Day Fiance or something, the next channel you'd flip over and it would be preserving food. It's not crazy. It's responsible, just like getting, home insurance or car insurance or anything else. But they have stigmatized it here because they don't want us self-sufficient. Our governments in most of these countries want control. They do not want us self-sufficient. They don't want us being able to live off grid. They want us on grid, on paper, on everything, on track, on traced. What do you guys think about that? Let me know in the comments down below. Dex, it looks like we're running out of time, and we've got some more stuff here. I do want to.
Yeah, we've got a good 15-ish or so minutes left.
Okay, I'll just make this real quick. Don't be like all of these other people that have 3 days of food. Go over to marfooglenews.com/prep. Get yourself some food. 25-year shelf life is good until 2052. You get a giant $200 discount on it, and you're helping our channel at the same time. This is something that everybody should be doing, and they're making you feel like you're crazy for doing it. The 3-month is now $200 off, so you can get a whole lot at a very low price. Some of their competitors are 3 times the price. Again, this is the most affordable way. That's why we picked them. This is through My Patriot Supply. Go over and check it out. All 25-year shelf life, sealed in Mylar bags, then sealed in buckets. You can also get the 3-day kit if you want a go bag worth. You can get all, single meals if you want. But I highly recommend getting yourself some food. If you don't do this, learn through all of the network of friends that we have over on marfooglenews.com. Go learn how to do it yourself. Do it cheaply, do it affordably, go to food banks, get water every time you go to the store, spend $2 to $5 every single week when you go, get yourself some non-perishable food and keep it because things are not looking good on the horizon. 6 Russian naval vessels detected near the site of Nord Stream pipeline 5 days before the Sabo, right? So they're now claiming that they believe that these Russian naval vessels were there. Basically, they're blaming that back on Vlad, and they're now saying that they have some sort of evidence to back that up. It says the convoy of 6 Russian naval vessels were spotted near the Nord Stream pipeline just 5 days before the sabotage occurred. It was reported on Sunday. 3 of the 4 pipelines carrying Russian gas to Germany were seriously damaged. People are still not... I don't know what... This took a while to come out, right? I don't know why it took so long for this to come out, but it did definitely come out after that whole Pulitzer Prize-winning author put out his side of the story. And now they're... I don't know if they're grasping at straws or they're telling the truth. But one thing doesn't make sense about this. Why would they need to even do it to themselves? They didn't then immediately blame everybody. They didn't blame anybody. They blamed the U.S. now. They blamed him a few days later, but it doesn't make sense. They could just turn it off. Why would they screw up their own infrastructure? But again, that's kind of contradicting my other thought. These people don't really care if they have to rebuild something, if they can do it for power or for, to move something forward. But now they are saying it is thought that hundreds of kilograms of explosives and equipment would have been required to pull off the scale of damage seen last September, which occurred 80 meters below sea level. But it has now been claimed that a Swedish warship may have spotted the Russian convoy and tracked it. So wait, I'm sorry, did they may have or they did? possibly being aware of it for as long as 3 days. Possibly. They said may and possibly. This could have happened. If they tracked it, they have proof. Why don't they just put out the proof? And why wouldn't that proof come out right away? Sweden was involved in all of these talks. Swedish officials were involved as soon as 1 day after. Why the hell didn't this come out earlier if this is a thing? Or did they need time to put this together? I don't know. Dex, on that, do you...
The claims are amazing. They're basically saying the claims are amazing. They're basically saying that they suspect that they were tracking these ships, and now they're saying that the ships they were tracking included two Russian tugs, a surveillance ship, and a submarine rescue ship. And now they're saying the submarine rescue ship had its own mini submarine called an AS-26, which can go depths of 80 meters and carry loads of up to 50 kilograms. Convenient that it's all coming out right now.
How you say convenient?
Yeah, just perfect timing that it's there. But those are the claims.
And
those are the claims.
I'm sure soon to release pictures of giant TNT boxes on the hull of a very clearly Russian tugboat. Big old TNT. And they'll have Acme right on the side of the box. Because this is Looney Tunes. And then Russia starts receiving regular supplies of Shahed kamikaze drones. UK intelligence. More drones. We'll see. These are the Shahed, so they're from Iran to the store. And it says the UK intelligence analyzed the situation with Russia's use of Iranian-made Shahed kamikaze drones on Sunday. It says the Ministry of Defense of the United Kingdom, quoted, since the beginning of March 2023, Russia has likely launched at least 71 Iranian-designed Shahed series one-way attack uncrewed aerial vehicles, or AWA UAVs, against targets across UKR. These attacks followed by a 2-week pause in AWA UAV attacks in late February. Russia has likely started receiving regular resupplies of small numbers of Shahed. Russia is likely launching Shaheds from two axes from Russia's Krasnodar Krai and Bryansk Oblast. So this allows Russia flexibility to target a broad sector of UKR and decrease flying time to targets in the north of UKR. It is likely to be a further attempt to stretch UKR air defenses. Basically, the more that they are defending against these, that they're not defending against other things, and they're it costs $20,000 to make these, and it's $500,000 for one of our missiles that knocks it out of the air. At least that's what they have said. And then UKR fears nuclear plant could face dangerous water cooling shortage. So another nuclear thing. Most of these end up being nothing burgers that just distract the news for 3 days. But again, this is again out of the Zaporizhia nuclear power station. Could, by late summer, face a shortage of water to cool reactors because Russian forces have let water out of a reservoir that supplies the plant. Apparently, just like the old days, they were drinking out of the hose. Just kidding. Which created, there's at least 4,000 teenage mutant teenagers now running all around, flipping, doing backflips in Zaporizhia. Dex, as far as this goes, there's not really much we could say on it until we know what happens, but are they saying that it's going to be really bad if it happens?
I mean, obviously letting water out of a reservoir that is used, that is one of the water supplies of that city, and it is also used for the plant to cool, could be a major issue. But what they may not be telling us, and I'm not saying this for sure, it's going into my opinion, they may not be telling us is they let that out because as the snow melts, it fills back up. Who knows? And it could just be normal, and they're just taking a sound bite and making it sound more soundy. It's just it's
That's
just like the
something
stuff
I
that
would
comes,
say.
the stuff that comes out of this place it's getting ridiculous. It's just like every day it's like, oh, this is going to be so bad, and then nothing ever happens. Like, oh, they can't shoot off any more missiles, but 2 more times, and it's been like 10 more times since then. So, yeah,
Dude, I'm rubbing off on you. Did you just say the sound bitey's more
it's getting
soundy?
more soundy. Yeah, it's getting more soundy. You like that?
We spent too much time together, man. You're turning into me. That's not a good thing. You have to be the smart one. Okay. Oh my gosh. That was totally something I would say. Vladimir Zelensky's team refused Bear Grylls' offer of chocolate for fear of poisoning. Bear Grylls. So they suspected the survivor dude of I don't think it would be smart for any of these people to take chocolate from anybody, to be honest. If I was in a position like that, I probably wouldn't either. Vladimir Zelensky's security team pounced on some chocolate offered to him by Bear Grylls over fears that the survival expert could have been trying to poison the UKR president. Grylls offered Mr. Zelensky a square of Cadbury's to break the ice during their first meeting on a trip to UKR to film a new documentary. But the president's security team were not pleased. They jumped in and they snatched it. They refused the offering in case Grylls, 48, was trying to take out Mr. Zelensky. I get it, Grylls told Good Morning Britain on Monday as he discussed the new Channel 4 documentary, Bear Grylls Meets President Zelensky. That's the documentary. Guy meets guy. Normally, when I've done this before with world leaders, the wild does half my job for me. It's a great leveler. It's a great icebreaker. You're out in the mountains. It says Grylls have shared food with other world leaders, including bits of salmon caught by a bear with former U.S. President Barack Obama in Alaska's wilderness. During his visit to UKR, Grylls witnessed the destruction brought on by Vlad's invasion, met by UKRs whose lives had been changed forever. So he's possibly part of the Ganda machine. Cadbury's. Well, at least he didn't eat the $10,000 colored egg or something. Maybe they saved him.
I heard they had no issue with the squirrel, though.
Yeah. As far like, I could see, Bear Grylls. I mean, maybe it's because of all the video they saw of him wrestling with bears. I don't know. They're like, you would think that would make them more like him, like trust him. Like, oh, you wrestle bears. You probably don't hang with Russia. Either way, absolutely crazy things all over the world. If you want to find out more and find out what happens tomorrow, then tune in tomorrow. Let's go over the web only. We've got tons of really insane stuff that, again, is not, you should not skip this. Dex, let's go over the overflow.
Yeah, absolutely. So head over to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, or open up the show notes link. It's right down there in the description. Just click on that. It'll take you right here. Get all the news we just covered, and then you'll get the rest of the story. So this is the overflow section. Everything else, it's kind of supportive. It's some other topics we don't always just talk about here, and much more. We talked about the camouflage for the facial recognition. There's another article. We've talked about it before on our show before. Another company's got some stuff out there looking at it as well. So if that interests you, go take a look. Some really creepy stuff going on with the what is it called? VR, virtual reality, where they're trying to like experience or give you an experience that's much like I guess having a near death experience. They try to recreate that. And it's so bad that people are actually are so realistic, I guess I should say, they're actually having panic attacks. So if you want to read about that, we'll get to that as well. Or that's all there. We do have the political coverage, which is, hey, whatever. And even Ted Nugent came out and made some crazy comments. So if you want to go see all that, it's there. Unfortunately, another event happening in Nashville and other places that those things continue to happen. That's covered. Some crazy stuff about what you can fly and how they're going to fly people around in new technology. The obligatory Elon stories are there. And then, of course, all the other stuff that's going on in UKR, it's all there as well. So we've got updates across the different, from the car explosions that have happened to what other people are being involved in and what's happening in UKR. So all of that's there. I didn't give it to you as much as we actually had. There's much more, but we're kind of running low on time, so I want to make sure you do know about it. So go to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, and get to this overflow section. It's the rest of the story, and it's right there on YouTube and Rumble. Just open the description and click on the show notes link.
Stephen W. 200. Thank you for the diamond over on DLive. Thank you, everybody over on DLive. I appreciate you guys. Scooby-Doo Do Right. Stephen N.W. again says, Jacob's Ladder is my YouTube channel. Stephen W., I will check it out. That's actually what my friend Jacob Israel, I think he calls his thing is like Jacob's Ladder. I know it's obviously prominent in the Bible, so it's kind of like, I guess, there's probably a bunch of them. But I will have to check that out. Phil Billy, Beer Juice, Skyhouse, Yobi, Gem, Scooby-Doo Do Right. Thank you for gifting out badges over on DLive to Scottish Stevie. And thank you, Beer Juice, for gifting out badges to Defiance. Let's see here. Thank you, Scooby-Doo Do Right. Says, I'm dog tired. I got to lie back. Much love. Well, thank you, and much love to you as well. Susie QNC, thank you for being there. Beer Juice, thanks again for the badge gifting. And Nojo, thank you for also being there. Beer Juice, thank you. I appreciate your support. And Phil Billy, thank you for your support over there as well, and thank you for modding. Freedom Underground says, a pretty big alien armada entered Earth's atmosphere Saturday night, and it was the wildest thing I've ever seen in my life. Well, I don't think I ever figured out what that thing, there was 7 or 8 objects that came into California's airspace. They said it was space junk, right? The meteors. Last night, I heard the craziest explosion. It wasn't anything I've ever heard before. I got it on video. I might want to share the audio of it. It's really insane. It sounds like God had a shotgun. It sounded like a shotgun. It didn't sound like a firework. It didn't sound like a boom. It went. It was so nuts. I'll share the audio. Ray the Way, well, thank you. KT Cleans a Lot says, TikTok is the name of the robot character that represents the entire army of Oz in the 1985 movie Return to Oz. Well, I also thought it was funny that everybody's getting ticks off of TikTok. Just like coincidence right there. Red Maple Grove, Israel IL. Red Maple Grove, I don't know what that symbol is. Sorry about that. Carol, thank you. Red Maple Grove, again, thank you. Carol, Mike S., East Tennessee Preparedness, and everybody else that ended up stopping by and supporting, thank you. Freedom Underground, please send me more information. I'd love to see what you're talking about on Saturday. And then Jimmy Wright, 7167, thank you for the super thanks on the replay. Kelly Z3CD, thank you for the super thanks as well. Jessica Mathis, Lori Oder, and Just Moments in Time. Thank you, along with Jenna B. Official, for super thanks over the last couple weeks. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you. It is now time for the outro. Dex, thank you so much.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And remember to check out our mods and go subscribe to all of the great people over there at marfooglenews.com/friends. It's now time for the outro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. I couldn't find the echo button for a minute. It's where we say thank you to the people that matter most. You. Thank you guys, and thank you so much, everybody, for making it today. Thank you, top supporters tonight. It looks like Mike S. Thank you so much for your support tonight. Mike S. Mike S. Mike S. I got Mike. I got a Mike. And then a Mike. And then a Mike. I'm on a Mike. And then a Mike. And a Mike S. Mike S. Mike. I got a Mike. And then a Mike. And then a Mike. I'm on a Mike. And then a Mike. And a Mike S. Mike S. I got a Mike. And then a Mike. And then a Mike. I'm on a Mike. And then a Mike. And a Mike S. Hey, I with the O, I storm cloud, emissary of Sophia. I got the Carolina sipping on a cold pineapple juice, face turned turquoise, so I sew it loose. Hey, with the Brian Knight, a great job, everyone have a good time. A Stelmo, that would be fine. I'm Bobby Sue Fry, oh, a number one. Gal Firestorm. Mike, and a Mike S. I get the Mike I knew the Mike I said a Mike S. I got a Mike Y. A Mike tie with them in a Mike Y. I said a Mike Y. A Mike yes. He said Mike I said a Mike tie. I said a Mike I. Yeah. Mike tie. I said a Mike Y. I said a Mike Y. Maybe Mike S. I said a Mike tie. I said a Mike Y. I said a Mike Y. Maybe Mike S. I said a Mike tie. I said a Mike Y. I said a Mike Y. Maybe Mike S. I said a Mike tie. I said a Mike Y. I said a Mike Y. Maybe Mike S. I said a Mike tie. I said a Mike S. I said a Mike tie. I said a Mike Y. Maybe Mike S. I said a Mike tie. I said a Mike Y. Maybe Mike S. I said a Mike tie. I said a Mike Y. Maybe Mike S. Oh, I up to be up. I said that Katie cleans the Lord and my Maple Grove. Red door not back, now we drove down the street with the B real beats. I got a Lord McCormick and a Mr. T. I said right away.